It is an absolute delight that I have to have a conversation with a good friend of mine, Sally Elatta. I've known Sally for quite a few years, actually, 5 or 6 years at least. And she is one of the leaders who I admire, who I've always admired, the way that she leads, the way that she runs her company, and the way that she leads with love, which I keep suggesting should be the name of her book.
One of these days.
Together, we'll do something. So Sally, would you like to just quickly give us a short introduction about who is Sally and what makes Sally so amazing?
Oh, I don't know about so amazing, but thank you, Evan. You are amazing, and I'm very honored to be here with you. And you, my friend, are an amazing leader and a thought leader in this industry. So thank you for this opportunity to share. Who is Sally Elatta? I am a Sudanese American Muslim entrepreneur woman that came to the United States back in 1995 and really came here on a mission to do something extraordinary and live the American dream, start my own business and change the world through it. I know it sounds crazy, but, have an impact on a lot of different people. So I started Agile Transformation was the name of the company about 10 years ago. Really fell in love with the world of business agility, and so have since changed the name of the company from Agile to AgilityHealth, because it really should be about agility, not about one of the methods. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children, Yara, Sharif, and Noor. I am a belly dancer. I love music and I love belly dancing. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm proud to also be a leader. I feel that I love leadership. I love talking about it. I love learning. I love growing. I love coaching on leadership. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm originally from Sudan in Africa. So I've also, on the side, because I have a lot of time, started a nonprofit organization called Sudan Next Gen to help the country and the revolution.
And we're definitely going to talk about that. And just, you are the only person in the last, I would say, 10 years who's dragged me onto the dance floor. So you have that dubious honor as well.
You did good. You did good.
I did terribly, but thank you for trying. So let's talk about leadership then. What is important to you? What is it that made you the leader that you are today?
I really couldn't tell you what made me the leader that I am. That's a very good question. And I've been thinking about that since you helped me prepare for this. I really think that my mother, I'm going to have to go back to my mother and how she raised me, because remember in Sudan, women are not supposed to do what I'm doing right now. Like many women, especially the way when she was raised, right back in the day, women really were supposed to be home, homeowners, take care of the family, take care of the kids. Even education was optional in her time, but her family really wanted her to succeed. So they sent her to college, they sent her to high school, to college. And then she was very ambitious and decided to get a PhD and leave and move and live in Scotland. That's when she took me with her when I was 4 years old. And I think that my mother kind of removing me from the culture that she was in, bringing me to Scotland, Edinburgh is where we lived, and raising me to be fearless and to have ambition. And she really, created this "you can do anything" mindset, and to not be limited by anything. And I never understood the impact that had on me and in my life until I grew up, Evan. I took that for granted until I realized how many parents don't do that. They don't build confidence in their children. And there's a very big difference between confidence and ego. Building confidence is important. Ego is not cool. So, but my mother really just, her fearlessness, her drive to succeed, her love for education and learning, I really think gave me a lot. She's also the one that sent me here to the United States on my own when I was going to college. And so I had to, when a lot of people are worried to send their kids to another state, my mother sent me to another country and had me live here, on my own. And she said, "You can do this." She still stayed, obviously, we stay very much in touch and supports me, but she's always wanted me to stand up on my own feet. And I think that foundation sort of gave me that drive to instinctively be a leader, move things forward, not be afraid. So I say a lot of it comes from my mother, honestly.
I think there's a lot that people can learn from you and your leadership styles. So tell me, what's important to you? What is it about your past that has made you the leader that you are today?
Very good question. When I look at my past and how did I grow up and what made me who I am today, I really think of my mother, and I think of how courageous she was to leave Sudan, my home country, move to England so she can get her PhD. She took me with her when I was 4 years old, and that's honestly when she taught me to be fearless and to be ambitious. And like I mentioned, there's a difference between having confidence and building confidence in children, but also having ego. And so I don't have ego, but I definitely have confidence. And I think that fearlessness, being able to try anything, give something a go, having confidence in yourself, and doing that early in the kids and when we're raising our children, I just can't tell you how much that's had an impact in my life. And so when I speak about my leadership style, I always say I can summarize it in be bold, be real, and lead with love. Be bold for me, Evan, has really transcended so many things that I've done, like coming to this country and living here on my own as a teenager, buying my first house when I was 17 or 18 years old. I can't remember now. I took 30 credit hours in my last year because I really wanted to have the full-time job that I had. I made a lot of very bold moves early on, and then obviously starting my own company and now starting Sudan Next Gen. And being real is really about being authentic and speaking from the heart. And I know we're going to talk a lot today also about leading with love, and caring, genuinely caring about the people that you lead.
I love it. And those three, be bold, be real, and lead with love, are principles I think most leaders need more of. This is what we need in today's society, especially coming from crisis, and I suppose we should come to the point of everything we're talking about is how do you lead through crisis? So you're an insanely busy and productive woman. You've got AgilityHealth that you are leading through crisis, but it's not enough just to try and to lead a company, but you're also trying to help support a country through a time of crisis with Sudan Next Gen. So do you want to talk a little bit about what has shaped you to become that leader, to enable you to lead a company and support a country?
Stamina definitely is helpful when you're trying to do both of those things, and ambition. I just have a lot of drive inside me. I really want to make an impact, and those things we just talked about, the be bold, be real, and lead with love, are very helpful during times of crisis. As an example, in my company, when COVID hit, one of the things I noticed was happening in our Slack channel is a lot of people were starting to get anxious. Businesses were closing, and there was a lot of chatter that was negative. There was fear, there was anxiety. People would even post emojis, and my instinct told me I need to respond to that right away and ask people, hey, everybody, a lot's going on right now. How about if we come together and have an all hands meeting and just talk? Why don't we just talk about it? And I think that when you're in the middle of a crisis, and I just did something recently similar to that because of all the stuff that's happening right now with the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd, the what's happening in the world right now. I mean, there's a lot of anger, there's fear, and so I did something. I sent a very similar message. But what I was trying to do is say, look, let's come together, let's talk about it, let's heal with each other, let's have an open, honest conversation, and let's coach each other and mentor each other through this process. And I think that was very helpful because in times of crisis, sometimes as leaders, we freeze up, we don't know what to do, but you really have to understand you're leading human beings, you're leading people. You have to think about how are they feeling right now? What could I do? How can I respond to make sure that we don't react in a knee-jerk reaction like we see some of our, unfortunately, most senior leaders doing, right? How do I pause and respond effectively and acknowledge the pain, the fear, the anxiety, and bring people together so we can start to heal and move forward with direction?
So what did you learn along the way? Like obviously this hasn't been as smooth as anyone would want. You've made decisions and had to change decisions. What have you learned? What mistakes have you made? And how does being bold, being brave, leading with love help you address that crisis?
Oh, lots of mistakes. I think that it's natural for us as leaders when things are not going well, when we're afraid ourselves, to lean in too much, to jump back into controlling and making decisions. So that, that's something that I have to catch myself. I used to teach a servant leadership workshop where I really had to talk about how do you pause and reflect when you are leaning in too far, when you're controlling, when you're directing, and how do you jump back again and allow it. So I've had many moments where I've had to lean in and have authentic conversations with my team members and say, hey, push back on me if I'm giving you too much direct, and if I'm jumping too much and getting so much in the weeds. It was really hard to let people go. Our company, like every other company, has had financial struggles, and we've had to do layoffs. And letting people go was very painful for me. I did it with love, I believe. I cried through a lot of it. I sent emails to the people that we let go to apologize, because some of them and many of them, really were not performance related. So, and I also had during this last period, what I call my crash and burn moment, because sometimes as a leader, Evan, no matter how positive we are, so much negativity coming to you every single day, whether it's at work or at home, or your family feeling anxious, or people giving you, negative messages of what could be done differently, and things are not. People end up finger pointing a lot when they're anxious and when they're afraid. That brought me down as well. That really brought my spirit down, and I really felt like, gosh, maybe I'm not a great leader. I started to doubt myself. So I've learned that we're all human beings and we need to give each other grace. And I learned that it's important to, when you're overwhelmed, to pause, reflect, and reboot yourself. I just came back from some time off that was really necessary and needed. And I think sometimes mental health breaks are not something that we allow ourselves. I've also learned to surround myself with really positive people that can lift me up when I'm down, because there's so much going on right now. And without surrounding yourself with those positive leaders and positive family members, it can get really hard very quickly. So it's okay as a leader to struggle, but I think that you have to lift yourself back up again, and come back again and still, move forward, because people are relying and depending on you to do so.
When you do struggle, do you give yourself permission to not always live up to those three standards: being bold, being brave, leading with love? Are there points when those principles come into question?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've always been brave lately. When everything's falling apart, you move into fear. And I think that when you move into fear as a leader, you start to operate from a place of fear. But I think the most important one out of just being real is so important, because when you're real and you speak from your heart, people trust you. People follow leaders that they trust. And when you say, look, I'm sorry, I messed up. I messed up when I did this and that. Or I really honestly don't know what the answer is. What do you guys think? Let's co-create this vision together. A lot of companies right now, including ours, we're pivoting. We're looking at what does the future hold? What should our business model be? What is the right thing to do? And that requires a lot of creativity and innovation that's not going to just come from your head. It's going to come from the people around you. And so creating space to be humble, to admit mistakes. But I would say that being real and leading with love, I don't think should waver at all. But sometimes being bold, sometimes, for me lately, it has wavered, because I really had to doubt. I doubted myself. Can I be this bold? Maybe I made wrong decisions before. So what can I do differently?
No, excellent. So let's shift and focus on Sudan Next Gen for a second then. So you've been leading a company through a time of crisis, but last year and the year before, you had the Sudanese revolution. Is it a revolution? Do we call it that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that experience, and how helping a country through a time of crisis, did that help you in looking at your business through a time of crisis?
Yeah, I was so inspired by the revolution, and I was very emotionally it's kind of like what you see on the streets right now. When you see so many young people out asking for change, demanding change, I mean, there's just something that awakens inside you that's just hard, hard to say no to. And everybody start to think about, what am I going to do? How am I going to help? And millions of people came out in the street, all of them young women, like many women and youth. And they really said, enough is enough. We want to get rid of a dictator. So I had to think about, as a transformation leader and somebody who can lead big change within organizations and companies, how can I take my skills as a change leader and bring it to a country? And honestly, Evan, it started with, I really did not have a plan. Hi. I really did.
Use from home. You're always going to have those interruptions.
That's okay. And you might find my son might come in here any moment now. I didn't have a big plan. I did a lot of what I teach people to do, which is test it, nail it, test it, nail it, scale it. So just try something, see if it works, and then scale it. So we put out some short videos around this platform that we wanted to create to unify all of the Sudanese diaspora to help Sudan. And people responded overwhelmingly. I'm talking about like hundreds of thousands of views right away. And so then I'm like, well, I know how to build platforms. So I'm going to hire some developers and I'm going to build an online SudanNextGen.com platform to unify the efforts of those experts, the government. So we built that. What I learned though through all of it is, movements are real, but you need people, and building a team around me, the amazing volunteers that have come together to help and support moving this Sudan Next Gen vision forward. I couldn't have done it without them, but it takes a lot of stamina, because when you're trying to do something that's innovative, that's new, that's different, and nobody's done it before, right? Nobody's thought about Sudan Next Gen. Nobody's thought about, I had to use a lot of my instinct, a lot of my gut feel of what does the country need right now? What's the message that the people want? What is it that could really be helpful? So I found myself in a complete, I would say, innovation space of inspecting, adapting, experimenting, and getting very live feedback from people of this is working or if it's not working. So even though they look very different, there's a lot of principles from business agility, innovation, leadership that really transcend both.
So whether you're changing a country or changing a company, the ability to pivot, the ability to get the feedback from your customers or the citizens, and responding as crises change. So let's come back to companies for a second then. We're hopefully at the tail end of the COVID-19 crisis. Countries are starting to open up again. My daughter's back at school, which is a blessing. I love her dearly, but I'm really glad she's back in school. But without wanting to be overly negative, this isn't the only crisis we've had in the last 10 years, and this won't be the only crisis we have. There will be another one before too long. What do we need as leaders to become or to be in order to adapt and thrive through whatever the next crisis is?
I look at it from I really look at the word resilience and agility, because I think that resilience, which the definition of it is bouncing back from shock, right? There's a shock to the system and knowing how to bounce back from it. When you're leading an organization, remember that you're leading people, human beings, but you're also leading the business side of it. And I think, Evan, what happens is some of our leaders are really good at leading the business side of it, but they don't know how to lead the people. They don't know how to use their instinct to lead with love, to be authentic. You see that, unfortunately, like I said, in our very senior leadership right now in the world, what happens when you don't know how to lead people, when you don't know how to respond to emotion, to anger, to frustration, to fear, to anxiety. So I think that balancing, knowing how to lead people and learning those skills right now, and quite frankly, surrounding yourselves with others that have emotional intelligence. Let's just say I'm a leader and I know I don't have that. I don't know how to lead with love. Maybe the concept of leading with love and being authentic even scares me, because that's very foo-foo. That's too soft for me. And I've heard that from leaders before. Like that's just too foo-foo. Because maybe I'm a strong business leader, more strategic, execution, numbers, details, KPIs, which is awesome. I think we need to balance both, because as we move from crisis to crisis, and I'm even going to say the COVID is a crisis, but look at what's happening right now in the world, the racial tensions and the Black Lives Matter. This is another one, and I had to send a message to my whole company just 2 days ago when it was in the middle of it, giving them my perspective of what's going on, letting them know I had to talk to my children about, you know, why do we need freedom of protest? What happened to George Floyd? Things like that, a lot of leaders feel afraid to do, right? They're like, oh, don't bring that into the work environment. The work environment is full with human beings. And I think that we now need to be as authentic as we can be. So lead with love, be authentic, and balance leading the people side of it with leading the business side of it. On the business side of it, you need to learn business agility. You need to learn innovation. You need to learn how to pivot. You really got to, you know, build up your strategy. But on the people side of it, you have to learn to be human again and know how to use your instinct to lead people through fear, through change, through anxiety. I've also learned that I had to find some of the weak spots in our company and begin to address them, because sometimes we have a lot of weak areas that we've gotten very comfortable with. And those are areas that really struggle when you need to pivot quickly and when the market's changing on you.
So we're almost at our time. Is there anything else you wanted to share to the audience about emerging from crisis before we close off?
No, I just really wish that everybody is safe. I hope that everybody's taking care of their family, their loved ones. And it's okay to show people around you, your employees, your team members, that you care about them, that you love them. Be authentic. Send out a message on Slack or whatever you're using to let people know that you care. You know, schedule a town hall meeting and just talk and be yourself. I think we're going through a lot right now, and our personal lives, our emotional and our work are all intermingling, and that's okay. And that's really okay. So just be safe out there, take care of yourselves, and be authentic and lead with love, as Evan says. And that will be one of our books coming up together.
Most certainly. All right. Thank you, Sally. And
thank you.
I hope everyone took those concepts and principles to heart, because that is very important. Thank you.
Thanks.